Welcome back. This is Pixel Lazy, back here for yet another leg in my flight around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I am just going to do a little bit of a short jump today. I am leaving from Anchorage, Alaska, and flying up somewhere in the middle of the Alaskan state somewhere, a place called Nixon Fork Mine. And we are just gonna take off in a bit of a rain. We are right now eastbound, but we're gonna lift off and head out kind of northwest. As you can see by the arrow indicator in my compass up in the top left corner. Probably do a little bit of a low swoop over Anchorage here. The thing that most interested me when I did a flyover of this yesterday was just off.
Lazy Lima 110, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
Just off to the left there. Just at my wingtip, you'll see a body of water, and that seems to be an airport for aquatic planes.
Anchorage Tower, Lazy Lima 110, frequency change. Anchorage approach, Lazy Lima 110 is type Cessna Skyhawk 1 miles east of Anchorage. Request flight following. Lazy Lima 110, Anchorage approach. Squawk 1061.
You can see that kind of lake down there.
1061, Lazy Lima 110. Lazy Lima 110, radar contact 1 mile south of Lake Hood, 1,100 feet.
All sorts of planes parked.
0.09er. Copy, Lazy Lima 110.
Other astute watchers will also notice I got a new paint job while I was visiting Alaska. A new livery. I did some custom design. This is
Anchorage
actually
approach, Lazy Lima 110.
one of my own
Request
creations.
clearance to transition Charlie airspace. Lazy Lima 110, Anchorage approach. Cleared through the Charlie airspace.
Got a new
Cleared
green
through
accent
Charlie airspace, Lazy Lima 110.
with some black striping on it, as opposed to the black and white plane we had before. But we're just going to get some altitude here as we look back on Anchorage, get some distance along our flight path, and I'll check in a little later. Here we're about 30 minutes into our flight, and I tried to get some altitude. I got up around 10,000 feet, and the weather got really interesting. As you can see, the plane is iced up a little bit. Got some ice buildup on the wings and the windows, and we're struggling just to maintain some altitude. I'm also got a little bit of wind, and so I'm zigzagging on my course a little bit, but doing my best to sort of keep in alignment with where I'm headed. And I guess we're just gonna fly through this cloud for a while and not see much but a big white hazy fog. Check in a little later as I get closer. Broke through some clouds here just randomly, trying to climb over them now that I can see the top. Not very helpful, but something to look at.
Stall. 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 Stall.
I I emerged from the clouds, and I was tracking some of this in my radar, but we were in the mountains, some really low flying over those mountains. So luckily the clouds broke up a little bit as we started passing through here. But we are about 75 miles out of our destination, probably another 45 minutes of flying. And this will take us halfway across continental Alaska, I guess. I don't know what you'd call that, the main part of the state. And you can see some of the thick clouds that we had to fly through to get here. But some more beautiful mountain scenery as the clouds parted and opened up for some nice central Alaskan landscape. I think as we get over into the Asia, along the coast there, it's going to be really sad. We've been doing a lot of flying through the mountains here for a while, and there's been a lot of interesting scenery, a lot of, I won't call it familiar because I haven't been up in Alaska, but you know, these mountains and this type of mountain are very familiar to me living in Canada. So this is it's going to be a shame when we're out on the coasts and traveling down not to see stuff like this, but I'm sure we'll see some amazing and interesting sights as we travel around the world. What's really actually interesting about this weather system, I flew through this thick cloud up and over the mountain, and I passed a little bit more as I went over the second of the two ridges, and now it seems to have completely cleared on the other side of this mountain, and my destination is down on a big flat open plain that looks to be about 50 miles across. And as I go over this mountain peak, you can see the clouds all but completely disappear. I just thought that was really neat. And leave that huge weather system behind me. What I thought was going to be a miserable flight with no scenery turned out to be a little bit more interesting. It looks like we'll have some scenery for the rest of the way. What a difference 15 minutes makes. It's just been another couple of minutes since I recorded the last clip, but now I'm clear of those mountains and you can see the live weather system that I just flew through. The plane is still a little bit icy, but we've passed over that ridge of mountains and it seems to be holding back that big block of cloud. In central Alaska today, it seems like it's a beautiful clear day. Just headed out, somewhere out on that plain is a little airport named after a mine, Nixon Fork Mine. And that's where we're going to be landing in about half an hour. If you've been watching my flights, this is the 11th leg of a trip around the world. I left from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada about 2 weeks ago now, shortly after Microsoft Flight Simulator was released and opened up the entire virtual planet Earth to anybody with an interest and a hefty enough computer, I suppose. I've been flying A to B to C, following the rules that I only ever take off from the airport where I landed at last. And I record every single leg of this trip, partially as a video, which I edit down to save you from watching sometimes 2 to 3 hour long flights, just to show the highlights, and then a flight log at my website, pixelazy.ca, pixelazy.ca. We're about 25 miles out of today's destination. I'm just flying over the last little bit of Alaskan.
110 traffic is 9 o'clock, 4 miles at 8,300 feet generic. Report them in sight. Generic tree Alpha Lima traffic is 9 o'clock, 4 miles at 7,200 feet Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight. Lazy Lima 110 traffic in sight.
We're just talking about that little one airplane that's flying about the middle point of the screen right now.
Generic tree Alpha Lima have the traffic.
It's a Alaskan Airlines flight or something. The landscape here is really quite interesting. Some sort of watery tundra prairie or something. Very colorful. Just on the bottom of the screen you can see a landing strip. There's 2 airports that are fairly close to each other on my flight plan. But that other one that's up near my right wingtip, I think that's the one I'm headed towards, because I'm only 6 miles away. So as you can tell, it sort of runs north to south, hoping to lose a little bit more altitude and do a swing around and land. Seem to be at a much higher altitude. We left Anchorage at sea level, essentially just a few feet above sea level. Now we're sitting around 4,500 feet. We are fairly close to the ground here. I would say, yep, there we go. Just popped up. So I'm going to resume a little bit when I'm a little bit closer to landing. So this is the Nixon Fork Mine landing strip. I have no idea. I have no information on that. I just picked it because it was a airport about halfway between Anchorage and Nome. Nome is kind of going to be my last stop in Alaska until I head over into Russia, so I wanted to kind of jump over to Nome by the end of this weekend. See my shadow down there on the ground. It's really hard to judge what altitude I need to be at. It's maybe a little bit of a rough landing, but a little bit of an incline. Looks like just a little mining airport in the middle of nowhere. Ooh, a little fast. A little bounce. Slam those brakes on. Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh. Oh no. Ooh, that's close. We're off the runway into the woods. We're going to take you on a little tour of Nixon Fork Mine and into the trees before we crash. So, there we go. We're at a stop. Not the best landing I've ever done, but welcome to Central Alaska. I'll just get this guy back on the runway and pick up in the next video.